Morning everyone, and welcome to this morning's financial reporting for Microsoft Dynamics Business Central What are the Options webinar with myself, Dan Booth, and my colleague David Butcher. Couple of things just as a welcoming introduction, a couple of housekeeping things. During the session, all the lines will be set to mute to avoid any unnecessary noise interference. We have quite a detailed session today. David's going to go through a number of things. So generally, we're going to be tight on time at the end. So any questions that you've got through the session, please type them into the chat window. We'll do our best to answer them during the session. If anything needs to be answered offline afterwards, we can send you an email. But please do ask any questions you want through the session, or just put them in an email at the end. That contact details will be on the final slide. So if you've got any questions at all after the session's ended, please do get in contact. Quick agenda. I don't want this to be death by PowerPoint. I want to give as much practical time for David to go through the actual options as possible, but we'll have a quick reminder. There are some prospects on the call, so we'll have a quick reminder of what amounts, who we are and what we do. We'll go through the reporting options. We'll focus on 3 key areas, and then we'll get into the demo with David before a wrap-up and summary at the very end. So, Announce, what do we do? We're focusing today on Business Central, and we're focusing on the reporting options around Business Central, but Enhance offer all services and support across the Microsoft platform, whether that is Dynamics 365 CRM, commercial CRM, not-for-profit CRM, anything around that. We offer services around data management, big key thing that is beginning to become more and more popular, around data warehouses, data lakes, Dataverse integration for those who are on the full cloud Microsoft sort of journey. We offer cloud services, including licensing reviews. Anybody who's looked into Microsoft licensing knows it can be a minefield, so we have experts in that field to make sure that your licensing is as efficient as possible. But we're talking about Purview and doing any Azure solution, disaster recovery and migration assessments. So across the whole cloud offerings that we can provide through Microsoft. And finally, it wouldn't be a Microsoft-based partner presentation if we didn't mention Copilot. But the Copilot and AI across all of the product sets is here. It's improving every single day. And we do have Copilot training and Copilot offerings around custom Copilots, agents, training, licensing, workshops, anything that you need to really embrace Copilot and AI as an organization to make things more efficient. Enhance can offer all of these, which is great, but today specifically we're focusing on Business Central and the reporting areas of Business Central. It is really all about options. Those of you who've been on any presentations with myself before will have seen this next slide. That's coming later on. I forgot to put a slide in beforehand, but what we get from every organisation across any sector is the sort of same statements around reporting. It's not a case of everybody wants to have that fully held within their finance teams anymore. Transparency, live access, self-serving reporting, different levels of stakeholders in your reporting organisations having the access at the level that they need. And one of the 2 of the most common statements are around the one version of the truth reporting, i.e. connecting to the source tables, everybody reading it the same instead of manipulating data, and that therefore brings consistent storytelling, because what is a report? It tries to tell a story at different levels to different people within your organisations. So these are the common things that we hear quite regularly, and through the options that Business Central provides to us, we can meet every single one of those requirements, whether you're in the product itself through the filtered lists, through the standard reports. For people using Business Central, you'll know, but for people who don't, there are approximate, over all the modules available in Business Central, there's about 550 standard reports now, all of which you can export to Excel, view to screen, PDF, Word, scheduling and things like that, and they are still and continue to be developed. It's a Microsoft product. we're, mainly in the room today, we're going to be talking to finance people. But we can say you don't need to put everything into Excel, but Excel is a reporting tool that people want to see. You want to see data in Excel. I still do, and it's one-click functionality to Excel. And Business Central, being a Microsoft product, seamlessly works with Excel, both pushing data to and from Business Central itself into Excel. It works with third-party reporting tools, so there's a number of GP customers on the call who are thinking about migrating, who are currently using Jet. Jet Reports still works with Business Central. There are seamless connectors, so if you are comfortable with Jet Reports and you're using them at present, you don't need to think about changing your reporting tools. We can link to Jet Reports through Business Central, and then obviously, Power BI. Power BI is a sort of Microsoft advanced reporting analytical tool. Microsoft do want you to use Power BI. They can't make it any more plain by putting a portal to Power BI on a user's homepage, but you can connect data seamlessly to Power BI. So, other reporting tools can work. It's all web or data based, API based. You can connect to any other reporting tool with data from Business Central, but these are the ones that we see are most commonly used, and most commonly sort of adopted in organisations across any sector with regards to the reporting. So it's not a case of can we report, can you get this information out? We generally always can. The real question that we ask is who do you want that report to go to, and at what level do you want that report to show data? And that then allows us to pick the best option for that individual or that individual group of people within your organisations who need to see maybe summary data or really detailed data. And the three things that we're going to concentrate on today, based on the last slide, is Business Central reporting, standard reporting in Business Central. We're going to go into Jet reporting, and we're going to go into Power BI as well. These, as I've mentioned previously, are the three most commonly used reporting tools that we see in a Business Central implementation. And it's not just ourselves, that's across the whole partner network as well. These are the sort of three commonly used tools. So we're going to go through standard reports in Business Central. We're going to show how easy it is to create the reports in Jet Reports, and then we talk about Power BI as well. Now, I go back to it, please, all the reporting, there's no right or wrong answer on your reporting requirements. It's all about what level of data, what level of access you want to give the individual or individuals in that group, and we meet the requirements via the different options that we've got for us. So really broad spectrum of possibilities, and something that we really do focus on, because you choose a finance system, if posting journals is all you need, then Microsoft Dynamics might not be the system for you. If we're talking about getting data to the right people at the right time, these reporting options will meet your requirements. And with that, what I'll do now, I will hand over to David Butcher, who is a lot more competent than I am in the detail of the reporting, for him to go through the reporting options with you. So over to you, David.
Thanks, Dan. Okay, so I'm going to run through 4 examples of those. I'm going to quickly run through a couple of pieces in Business Central, and I'm going to have a look at building some stuff in Jet, and I'm going to have a look at building some stuff in Power BI. So we're going to have a look at, what does the experience feel like as somebody who is designing reports in those areas. I am not going to focus a lot of time on making Excel look pretty, because as Dan mentioned, Excel is every accountant's favorite tool, and you use it a lot more than I do, so I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying to make it look pretty. I'm going to show you how Jet works and not how Excel works. So we're going to have a look, first of all, in Business Central at the analytics view that you can use straight in the system to get answers to questions really simply. So if I wanted to do a quick cross-check and bounce off my VAT and check that all my VAT was being reported correctly on my VAT return, I might start by having a look at my VAT entries. All right, so there's all of my VAT entries. That's a lot to digest. I could click on export it to Excel, and then I can start messing about with it in Excel. But we don't need to do that anymore. We can just go ahead and enter analysis mode. And then in analysis mode, we can actually build a report right on screen here. Now, I kind of want to pivot this so that I can get some totals and things out. So I can click onto pivot mode. And then I can choose what I would like to see in my rows. So I'm going to grab my VAT product posting group and drop that in the rows. And I'm going to take my VAT and my net amounts. I can see that we've got our standard, our reduced, our zero. What's the net amounts? What's the VAT amounts against all of the items? I'm going to need to split that by type so that I can see what's purchase and what's sales. So I'm going to grab that and drop that in columns. And now I've got that split between my purchases and my sales, so I can do a quick cross-check there. I also want to put in some date restrictions to filter that. Just have a look at the VAT quarter that I've got in question. So I can go over to my analysis filters. I can go into dates and I can put in a range and put in the start and end date of my VAT dates. So super quick, in just a few seconds, I've built myself a pivot table straight in the system, and that saves so that if I want to pop back later and have a look at the same thing or in the next quarter and just change the dates, I come back to my VAT entries, pop back into analysis view, and that is still there. And you can create more and more versions. So there's one that I created earlier, which has got a slightly different layout in there, but I've still got my details all split and I've got my date range applied. If you feel that was a bit too complicated and you are not quite comfortable doing that, well, then you can ask Copilot to create your view. So you can use just natural typed English and type in, I want a summary with base and amount split by VAT product posting group and columns as types, and it will go ahead and build that for you. And you can try that out in your own system and test and see how it gets on. If you don't like what it creates, you can always give it a thumbs down and it'll learn it did it wrong, give it feedback. The more it learns and the more you teach it, the better it'll get. So work with the AI and it'll improve. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to have a look at is Business Central Excel reports. So these have been kicking around for a little while, but I don't know that many people are using them a lot yet. If there are any reports that are operational reports in the system that you export out into Excel and then you pivot it or do a graph off of it or do something else with it, then you can actually save all of that work and reuse it. So I'm going to run not a particularly exciting example and certainly not a very pretty example, but I'm going to run my aged accounts receivable. And I can run this and I can produce my report. So I'm just going to preview that. And that's my normal out of the box aged accounts receivable report. Demo company, so I don't have a lot of customers, but that's my accounts receivable report. Now, let's say I needed to do something with that to give it to finance company or the bank or something else, and I wanted it presented in a certain way every month. So every month I export that out into Excel and I do things with it. Then I can save that Excel version. So I can run the report, but on the report layout, rather than running the normal system report, I can click on this button here and I can choose my aged accounts receivable in Excel. Doesn't have a preview option here, it just has a download because now it's going to be an Excel workbook. So I'm going to go ahead and click on download. And that's generated me an accounts receivable in Excel. All right, I did promise you that it wasn't going to be pretty, but it's not your standard accounts receivable. It is, it's kind of pivoting my data and then it's showing it in a pie chart representation of my data there. So if you want to do something like that with your operational reports, how do you go about doing it? Well, you start with the original report. And instead of just printing it or previewing it, we're going to send it out to Excel, Excel as data only. So we're going to choose this option, no layout, just the data. All right, that drops out into Excel in this format here. You can see it's got details about the company, the date range, it's got all kinds of things coming through. And in there, we've also got our period breakdown, we've got our currencies, we've got the company name, etc., etc., etc. Lots and lots and lots of columns of data. So you can see we're hitting on for about 70 columns there. It's also got a couple of other sheets for how it would display that in other languages. It's got some caption data and some other pieces coming in. Now, if I wanted to go ahead and create an Excel version of my report that I could use as an Excel report in Business Central, I'm going to add in another sheet. Actually, that will do that for me, but I'm going to take my data here and I'm just going to use Excel functionality and I'm going to say I'm going to insert a pivot table. I'll pop it in a new sheet. All right, then we can decide what information we want to include in our pivot table. So search for name, drop that in my rows. Now there is the blank lines which contain totals and other things. So I'm just going to filter that out. I don't need to see the blank lines. And then I'm going to drop in the balance. All right, now it's counting those up for me. That would be much better as a sum. So let's change the settings to a sum and let's give it a decent name as well. So we'll just call it balance. Okie dokie. So that's the pivot table part of it. And then if I want to make a pie chart out of that, then I can go ahead and insert a chart. Format it how I like. That one looks good to me. Do whatever you want to format it. So, do I need a title on it, etc., etc. I'm certainly not going to get into any awards for my design skills in Excel today. But now that I've built all that, my end result still needs to contain all of the data, the captions and translation data, but I don't particularly need to see them. I can just hide those. And then save that as an Excel file. All right, so I've done that and I'll close that down. And now I need to add that into Business Central. So that's a template that Business Central can use when running my aged accounts receivable. So I'm going to go to my Navigate, my Tell Me window, and I'm going to search for report layouts. And now you can see all the reports that are loaded to the system. You can see the report type, and some of the ones down here that I've been playing around with and demonstrating with are Excel reports on our aged account receivable. And so we're going to add another one. So I'm going to go ahead and click on a new report. It's going to ask me what the report ID is. You can look it up, or you can read from the list and get what report number is. It's telling me that that's the aged accounts receivable report. What would I like to call it? What report type is it? Is it available in all companies? Etc. etc. And then when I go ahead and click on OK, that's going to ask me to upload my Excel template. Now if I pop out and grab my Excel report template that I've just saved, all right, so now I've got 3 different variations, all Excel, all pretty much the same. But I've got 3 different examples of Excel. So you can have more than one Excel template for the same report. So going into my aged accounts receivable, now when I choose what kind of report I want to run, I can see my new webinar demo that I've just created in there. And I can click OK, download that. Okay, and it's output it into my pre-formatted with the pivot table and the pie chart in there. All right, so any report that you pop out from Business Central that comes out as a regular report that has a report style, you can export that as data only, and you can turn that into an Excel report. All right, next we're going to have a look at Jet. So Jet is a well-established, one of the most popular reporting tools for finance people. It has a portal where you can publish reports and schedule refreshers, and it has a Excel add-in as its engine for writing the reports themselves. So I'm going to start by demonstrating a report. Again, it's pretty simple. All right, so nothing particularly rocket science here. We have a summary income statement split by department, showing us some figures. My demo company is not doing so well, might be closing soon. Now it's in view mode, it has been published, and so it does have drill down capabilities, and you can toggle as a user whether you would like to drill down into Business Central or whether you would like the drill down to be within Excel. So if you are a Business Central user, you can drill right back into Business Central, right back to the document, see attachments, and etc. If you're sharing the report with someone who's not a Business Central user, well, they can still drill down to the transaction levels, but just within Jet itself. So you can see here I have my little drill. Can't remember if I've got one on Excel or otherwise. The first time it makes a connection on any session, it has to go and do all the connecting and authenticating, etc. And it does take a few seconds for that to kick in. Also, Jet is not very good with autosave because it does a lot of changes. Okay, so this is the drill down in Jet itself. So in there you can see all the details about the entry, the descriptions, who did it, posting dimensions, etc., etc., etc. So if the user doesn't have access to Business Central, they will still have the capability of doing some drill down. When you're running Jet, you get a Jet ribbon, and if you are a designer, you'll have the option of going into design mode. But if you're not a designer, you still have the option if you have a viewer license. So again, you can share this with users who aren't going to build reports, but they are going to run reports. You have the option of running the report. You can give the user parameters so they can define what report period they want to look at. So if I wanted to have a look at this for the period ending June, I can change on the fly what period I want to look at, and then it's going to go and connect to BC and rebuild my report. There's not a lot of July data and I wouldn't expect the figures to change massively. All right, so now my report for the date 1st of January to 30th of June. How does that look as a designer? What's your experience? What are you doing and how are you working with the system? So first of all, if I pop into design mode, this is the work that I've done to build this report. So I have got a little bit of a template here, and most of this is just values that I've typed into Excel. So it's just descriptions. And we've got a basic Excel formula here combining with the dates that people are entering on my options page, just to give my title. But there's nothing here that's not just normal Excel. So I've taken all of that basic Excel stuff and I've copied it onto a new sheet here with the Jet parts missing. All right, so the first thing that I've got, I'm going to just turn the grid lines on. It won't look so pretty, but that's easier for me to see what I'm doing. So the first thing that I've got is a formula that I am entering in here that is calculating, what is my income. Now I've put some stuff on the page for me to use. So I've put the account range in Business Central. So all of my income codes start with a 1. So I've put a filter here, or something that I'm going to use as a filter to say that any account codes that start with 1 is an income code. I want to show my income as a positive number. So I've put a multiplier column in here. So I'm going to multiply it by -1. I also want to be able to filter by department and have columns by department. So in order to have columns by department, I'm going to start by making some columns for each of the departments. So I'm going to start up here and I'm going to use the Jet function wizard. So there's various Jet functions for various different types, and I'm not going to go into them all right here, but this first one I'm going to use is going to get me 1 column per department. So it's going to dynamically expand. So if I add a department or close a department down, it will expand out to all of the departments. So the Jet function wizard talks me through what I'm going to do. So I'm going to say I would like a column per department. I'm going to use the dimension values table. And I'm going to pull out 2 different things. I'm going to pull out the code so that I can use it in filtering, and I'm going to pull out the name so that I can use it for display as the column title. Now I only want the dimension values for the department, so I'm going to have to make sure that I say I only want departments in here, nothing else. So as my dimension code, I'm going to filter to department. All right, so it hasn't done all of the columns because that will be for when I run, but it's giving me an example of my columns. So here it's pulling in that the first column is my administration department, and so it's giving me the code is ADM and it's giving me the title as administration. Now I have already got some jet functions in those two cells which I left in, which just point to E2 and pull out the code, and this one points to E2 as well and pulls out the name. So takes that code and puts it into a usable format on the screen. So now I'm going to put in here a formula that's going to filter to the dates that I've got on my options page. And it is going to filter to the account codes that I've got in column B. And it is going to filter to the department code that I've got in row 3. So I'm going to use a GL function for this one. Again, it's going to ask me what I want to get. GL functions are very, very optimized functions for getting GL data. So you can see here it's asking, do I want the balance, do I want the budget, debits or credits? It's all GL stuff here, nothing else. I'd like the balance. What accounts would I like to include? Well, my accounts are over here in B. So I'm going to put that in. And I just want to make sure that it stays in B. So I'm going to lock column B so that when it expands out the columns, it still keeps looking in column B for the account. What's my start date? My start date's on my options page, but I also named it start date using Excel named ranges. So I can just reference it as the start date. It gives me an example of what the start date is to let me know that I've used the correct name range and it's pulling back the right values. Same for end date. And I'm going to be grabbing my department from row 3. So again, I'm just going to lock and make sure it stays in row 3. Okay. And so I have created something that's pulling in my income. Now it's written as a formula. If I was smarter, I would be able to just type that in, but it's much easier to use the wizards. But to reverse the sign on my income, I am just going to multiply that by my multiplier. And same thing here, I want to make sure I lock the column. So as it expands across the page, it still keeps looking at column C. Now by using those references and already having all of these values typed in, it means I can just copy that and I can put it everywhere else I want a formula. And it's going to pull the figures in for all of them. So JET is very reusable in its formulas and functions if you use Excel reference points to pull the data in, and you can build your report quite quickly. So when I run this, JET's going to hide all of the columns that say hide in them. It's going to hide all the rows that say hide in them. And it is going to create one column per department, expanding out and copying the details in. So when I click on run, we get our finished report similar to the original one that we started with. All right, so the pros and cons and why people like JET, it is Excel. So if you want to build an Excel dashboard and you're already building Excel dashboards, you can do that. It does support, expanding sections for rows and columns and also sheets. So you can create a sheet per department or columns per department or rows per department or any other thing, that piece of data that exists in BC. It's native Excel, so it's usually a very short learning curve for people. They don't have to learn a lot because they've been using Excel for years anyway. The output is an Excel report. You can share it externally with people who do not have a designer and a viewer license. And then it just saves as just an Excel with numbers. There's no drill down capabilities or anything else, but you still can share it externally if you need to. Jet themselves have lots and lots of examples of reports online. If you just Google search for Jet demo reports, it'll take you to the Insight webpage with all of the reports in there. There are many examples of things for various systems, so let it know that you're working with which account package you're working with. Let it know that you're using Jet reports, because there is also Jet Analytics and another one that's name's disappeared right now. But so make sure you let it know that you're interested in Jet reports, and it will then give you back many pages of pre-created reports. They are free to download, so if you want to download them and use them as inspiration, you can download them as well. They are the ones that you say you want to look at Business Central. It will be configured to work with the Business Central Kronos company, so you can connect it up to your Jet. You can play about with it in your Kronos demo company and see it working. All right, so the final one that I am going to have a look at is Power BI. So Power BI, people are becoming more and more familiar with. It's famous and always showcased as dashboards and high dynamic, quick information, self-serve. The key things that people think of when they think of Power BI is it keeps itself refreshed. It refreshes various times through the day. It's using a common data source, so everybody is accessing the same point of data. You can even connect your Excel to Power BI as a data source. You can say, I'd like to get data from Power BI and then build pivot tables, etc., using your Power BI data set. Now, when you work with Power BI, there will be a data set that you have to build where you connect up to Business Central, and there is a small amount of work that has to go in ahead of time to prepare Power BI with your Business Central data, set up a scheduled refresh, and actually get the data in the format that you want it, including creating something called measures that are going to do things like calculate your year to date or your previous year values, those kind of things, where it can pull it all in quite dynamically and quickly. So we are going to have a look at a finished example, and then we're going to have a look at how you build it. We're not going to look at the semantic model build in this session because it's it's not very good to demonstrate. It's a bit nerdy. So on a recording, it doesn't look good at all. So this is an example of a dashboard having a look at expenses split by various different ways. So we've got some expense categories, we've got it split by department, we've got a comparison to last year, and then we've got it split by region over here. So it's got a handful of slices down on the side where you can choose to switch to using a different budget. So we've got like a budget target on this one. We can just have a look at a particular region. So if we just wanted to look at the central region, everything's going to adjust just for the central region. Or we could have a look at just a particular department. So let's have a look at our production department and see how they're doing. So yeah, key things about this, there's no build, there's no publish, there's no run, it just is. There's also no run and calculate dates and times. If I want to see what this was as at July, then I can just change it and see what it is as at July. If I want to see what it was any other point or any other year, I can just go in and change the values. It's all there and it's all really fast at producing the data. So how do we build this? So in the Power BI service, I'm in powerbi.com, I'm in the report itself, and I am licensed, or not licensed, I have permission to be a contributor to this workspace. So you can assign that people will only be viewers, and if they're viewers, they will be report consumers, they will not be report designers, and they will not be able to edit. So don't panic that everyone's going to go in and destroy the reports that you've spent a long time building. So I'm going to edit my workspace here, and it now takes me into a design mode. So on my design mode, if I don't like this, I can move it around. But I've got another tab here where I've put on some details, but I'm going to put the rest of the details on not quite as beautifully as I've done here. I'm not going to fuss about with colors and exact spacing, but I'm going to kind of give you an idea. All right, so starting out, in order to do something like a year-to-date comparison, the page needs a reference of time. So I've left a lot of slicers on here because adding a slicer is the same, whether it's for a date or anything else. But if we want to add some slicers on for year and month, then I'm going to go to my visualizations panel. I'm going to go ahead and add in a slicer. All right, so it pops me a slicer on here. And then over here on my data, I can see I've got a date table. And in my date table, I can see things like fiscal year, I can see period, I can see month, I can see date. I want to be able to select a year. So I'm going to grab my year and just drop it in. And it's giving me a slider so I can have a range of years or a single year, which is fine, but it's not quite what I'm going for. I just want people to select a single year. So I'm going to go to the edit mode of the visualizations panel. I'm going to expand out my slicer settings, and I'm going to change this to a drop-down. Now, I'm a big fan of drop-downs because they are very space efficient. You want as much space as possible for information. You don't want your whole page taken up by slicers. So they're not necessarily always the best, but they definitely don't take a lot of space. So let's go pop this up as a slicer. Now, in my example here, I want people only to select a single year. Because if I'm going to do a year-to-date calculation, I say I want January, February, March in 24 to end 25, it all gets a bit crazy. The figures don't make sense. The user doesn't understand that they've done something bonkers and they just think the report doesn't work. So I'm also going to change this to a single select, and then that force me to select a year and will only let me select 1 year. Now, you don't have to do the same work over and over again. You can reuse things. So I've done that initial piece of work. I'm going to copy and paste that. And over here, I'm going to switch back to my data on my visual. I'm going to take the year out and I'm going to put the month in. And then I've got a month slicer as well. So that's the first part of building my report there, is I've got my slicers. Next, we're going to have a look at this section here, adding in cards with some specific information in them. So we are going to pop over to my demo page again, and we are going to use a card visual. All right, so that drops a card on. I can resize it, put it where I want to see it on the screen. And then I can decide what I want to include. So my card here has got some financial information about my year-to-date values of staff costs. All right, so I'm going to need to look at my general ledger entries. And in my general ledger entries, I've got a measure that's been created called year-to-date actual value. We're going to pop that in. On the card. All right, so it's brought me up nothing in there. But if I go to my filter panel, now I only want staff costs, I don't want anything else. Obviously, if I include my actuals, I'm getting my full TB, so it's not surprising that it's balancing out to 0. So I'm going to add a filter on against this visual. From my chart of accounts, I'm going to take my expense category and I'm going to drop that on as a filter on the visual and say I only want staff costs to be included in this one. I can see now that it is matching out to the 29.6 on the previous one. And then I can format that to reduce the size a little bit, make it a bit more readable. Let's try 26. We can choose that we won't round it. And we'll have no decimal places. So we can get in there and we can do all kinds of formatting with it to make it look how we want it to look. Now it's saying here that it's year-to-date actual value. I don't really want year-to-date actual value in there. I want it to tell people that it's staff costs. So again, back on my data, I can, for the sake of this visual, I can right-click it or double-click, and you can rename it for this visual. So it just renames what it's going to be called on this display. I can call it staff costs. Now I want a couple more of those, so I want to have one for general, selling, utilities, and a total. So I can copy, Control-C, Control-V to paste, spread them out. And I measured them beautifully on the previous page. They're just going to end up where they end up on this one. Okay, so I can take my staff cost that I did previously and I can say, well, actually, this one is not staff cost. This one is my general and admin. So let's rename that as general and admin. So again, we're reusing what we've just done. To save ourselves a little bit of time. And then for my total, I will just include all of them. All right, easy enough to do a card. And then if we want to create some of the other measures, we're going to go some of the other visuals. We're going to grab a gauge and we're going to put a gauge in. So this one's got our year-to-date actual versus our year-to-date budget. So we're going to go for a gauge visual. Pop that on, resize it to meet your needs. And then we've got, what's our values, what's our minimum value, what's our target values to create the gauge. I'm going to let it auto calculate the minimum and maximum based on the value and the target. So for my value, I'm going to pop in my year to date again. And for my target, I'm going to pop in my budget. And just to make sure that we're only getting our costs, I need to put a filter on there to make sure that we're only looking at our costs. So I put a filter in on this one to say general, etc., etc., etc. But I could actually put that on the page instead. So I could like drag that into the page. So that's what I'm going to do. Just it'll save me a little time on the other items to say this page only includes my different expense categories. All right, so now my gauge is pulling through with how much I've spent and what I've got left. I could then go to formatting and I could change the title, I could remove things, change the fonts of this, etc., etc. And I've done that on my version here, but you will spend a lot of time making things look pretty. The same again, if I want now to have my bar chart, click on bar chart visual, drop it where you want it on the page, resize it to suit your needs. Then drop in your values. I shall take my general ledger year to date. And from my dimensions, I'm going to take my department. I don't want the blank department on there showing up as a nil, so I'm just going to take it out. So I can do a little bit of tidying without too much effort, and then I can play around with titles and other formatting on there. Saying just two more to go. We've got a column chart here and we've got a bar chart by region. So on my column chart, I'm going to just choose to pop in a column chart. Drop that in over here. And this is going to show me a comparison on this example here. I want last year, I want this year. So I'm going to grab from my GL. As my x-axis, I want my different expense categories. So I'm just going to drag them in on the x-axis. And then on the y-axis, I want to include the previous year to date. Year to date. All right, so just building that one in. And then for my final example, we're going to have a little line chart. All right, so on our line chart, our y-axis this time is looking at our different months. So we are going to be wanting to see the months throughout the year. So I'm going to go to my date table and drag my months in on the x-axis. And then on the y-axis, I am going to put in my monthly amount because I want to see the movement month on month on month. So not the year to date this time, I'm pulling in the monthly amount. And then I want to be able to see per region. So I'm popping back into my dimensions. And as a legend, I'm going to put in the regions. All right, so you can see in there. My actual value by month, by region. Now, that's not much of a line chart. That's just a few dots. So I'm going to drop the blanks out of there. And that's because we've got some slices on the page telling us just to look at 2025 in June. And I don't want to just look at 2025 in June on this visual. So I'm just going to, final step on this, I'm going to highlight the month slicer. And then over here is a option to let me mess with the visual interactions. I'm just going to turn that on. And then against each of the other visuals on the page, you'll get different options. Should I filter this visual? Should I have no interaction? For something like a pie chart or donut chart, you might also have a highlight option where it'll highlight it rather than filtering it. And you'd say on my actual value by month, I don't want the month to filter. I want to see the full year. So I can, in this one, say I don't want to. And then it will display all of the months, even though I have selected June on the visual. All right, then I can save what I've done. Go to my reading view. And aside from a little bit of tidying up and making it look pretty, I've pretty much got the same as what I built on the first page. So that's how you build a dashboard in Power BI. Back over to you, Dan, for a wrap up.
Yeah, thanks for that, David. Really appreciated, and I think you showed a lot there in the time. So yeah, there's a lot there. So just to top off on the Power BI bit, you can see there you have the options to filter by department, filter by this, that, and the other. The one thing to say, through the user roles and permissions, which David touched on at the start, you can control who can see what. So you can have a budget holder who can access that report but only sees their department as standard and things like that. So there's a lot of controls we can put in place across all three of the sort of reporting options that we sell and we partner with the most, to really just control who gets to see what and at what level, which is the whole thing around reporting. So in summary, don't think we can report. Can we report on it? The answer is yes. The actual conversations that we have in the main are, who do you want to get that data to, and what level of access do they need, and what level of data do they need. We talk to finance people a lot, but we have to bear in mind that some budget holders, some non-financial users do get lost and blinded by data. So that's where potential dashboarding can help. It all depends on what the individuals need to see to be able to be efficient in their role. Core Business Central reporting is very, very undervalued. Must say that there's a lot of stuff in there, and as David shows, you can now create your own formats, link them so that you can get that reporting out in your format, especially via Excel, against the standard outputs, which is really, really good. One-click functionality. No coding required on Jet, as you saw. It's all just Excel formulas and using the Excel functionality and using the power of Jet to connect to the data seamlessly. Stressed again at the beginning, Microsoft want you to use Power BI. We've got a standard Power BI reporting pack with, actual v budget. Most of the things David showed there, commitments v budget, commitments, purchase order commitments, actuals v budget, all that. And we've developed this, which is a plug and play pack that we can put in, and really does give people a starting position and a real sort of advanced start in Power BI compared to just starting from absolute scratch. Business Central is still adding new reporting functionality at every single wave release. So if you've got advanced Excel skills, all the tables in Business Central have OData APIs which you can access. There's a lot of reporting options and a lot of stuff you can do around reporting. And that's why it's critical. If you don't feel as though you're getting the most out of it, do speak to either myself or to your account manager. The addition of Copilot's taking it to even a further level on that. So please, everything's moving at such a quick pace. It is the time to embrace and learn now and get your head around all the new things that are coming, especially with Copilot. So please do speak to your account manager, your sales representative, and myself for more information on that. And finally, just before the hour is up, I do need to make you aware of an announcement event we're having in November. It's on the 19th of November at Everyman's Cinema in Broadgate, London. It's a full spotlight on Microsoft Dynamics Business Central. There are separate streams on CRM, fundraising, data, and we're really focusing on Copilot and AI. It's open to all customers and all prospects across every single sector. There is a separate finance room. I know most people on this call are finance related, where we have a keynote, hopefully somebody from Microsoft coming along. We've got different areas. We're talking about AI. We're talking about Copilot agents as well in Business Central. We're talking about administration, and we've got case studies and a panel with customers who have moved to Business Central, either from GP or other systems, to us for you to be able to question them as well. You can register at the event via our website, emmons.com/events. It's probably about the fourth row down at present because it's in the future. You can, and I will leave this QR code on the screen. Because it's in the cinema, we'd be a bit off if we didn't offer popcorn. So popcorn will be available. But yeah, it's going to be a really good day, targeted not just at finance people, but also your IT teams. For charities in the sort of room today, there's going to be a stream on fundraising, engagement, Copilot with Dynamics CRM and things like that in a separate room. So it is targeting and tailored to different functions within your organisations. But we had a similar event last year at the Magic Circle, focusing on functionality. This one's more focused on the advanced elements around Copilot and what you can get out of AI throughout the piece. So it was a really good session last year. There were about 120 people turned up. We'd like to beat that this year, get up to about 150, 160. So please do register at the QR code, and it'd be really good to see you there. But in addition to that, we are focusing on webinar content into the second half of the year. So please do regularly check our website. There's a lot of things on there, a lot of events doing, and more regular webinars around Business Central will be coming between now and the end of the year as well. So please do keep an eye on that, and hopefully many registrations as possible for our event in November. But to end, thank you very much for your time today. I hope you've all found that very helpful around reporting, and please do speak to myself, to your consultant, to your account manager if you need any more information. But thank you for your time this morning, and have a good remainder of the day. Thank you.